Nice to meet
Uh,
you.
yes. So, yep, I've introduced already. I hope you have been listening to me. Yep,
Yep,
you
yep.
can take over from here.
Okay. So, a very good morning to one and all present here. I hope you're all doing good. And I also wish you a very happy new year. I hope 2021 will be full of smiles, with 2020 being a little bit difficult year for all of us. So, in today's session, we'll be discussing about the most important and must-know features of Service Desk Plus. So, at the end of the session, you will have a good understanding of how these features work, how they can be implemented in our product, and and how it add values to your product. Okay. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. I hope you're able to see my screen, right? I hope so, yes. Okay, fine. So I'm just keeping my application ready. Yeah, so in today's session of the features that we are going to discuss, we'll be looking into a set of features related to request management. So I have like a 5 to 6 set of features available. So I'll be taking up a small story, and with this story, let us see how these features can be well connected. So let's get started. I have an employee, his name is Sam. Sam is going to represent his organization in a user conference happening at Singapore the next week. So, when I say next week, that's not much of a time, right? We have to quickly start acting on his travel preparations. So, Sam has to intimate his organization to make arrangements for the travel. So, he logs in and starts to create a ticket. So, I'm logging in as Sam. He has a normal requester profile, and I have various portals here. So Sam is able to choose the travel desk instance portal from from the list, and he starts submitting the form for travel request. So as soon as the form loads right in front of him, he is provided with the default SLA of 10 days. So when we look at a travel arrangement that needs to be done, if you see, you'll have to process the visa based on the country you visit. You'll have to take care of the flight tickets that needs to be booked, and the hotel arrangements have to be made. So a minimum of 10 days is required to make the travel arrangement. But here in this case, I've told that Sam has to travel the next week. So there is no much time for Sam to wait for 10 days of service delivery. So here, Sam has to choose an appropriate SLA based on his requirement. So Sam quickly looks into the drop down list of all the SLAs that are provided to him, and he finds an express SLA in this list. Okay, so this express SLA is promising to deliver the service within 5 days. So here is where the feature multiple SLAs in service catalog has been introduced, where you're allowing the user to choose an appropriate SLA based on his requirement or based on his urgency to be promised to him. So Sam has chosen an express SLA of 5 days. He starts to fill in the form and he submits it. So say travel date is on 20. Okay, fine. Now he submits this request. The request gets created. So normally when a service request is created, what is the next process we have? An approval, right? It goes through an approval process. So Sam's reporting manager is a person called Daniel, but Daniel is currently on a holiday. He's not going to be back in another 7 days to the office. So in this situation, do you think it will be good for to wait for Daniel to come back and then give the approval? Definitely, it's not going to meet the SLA that has been promised to the end user, right? So here is where I'm going to think of someone who can act on behalf of Daniel. So I'm going to delegate this approval to someone who can act on behalf of Daniel. So I have configured the backup approver to be Answer. So Answer is going to be the backup approver for Daniel, who is on a holiday. So this way, even if Daniel is not in his place, someone else who has been assigned to be the backup approver for Daniel can take the approval action. So in this case, I can see that the mail has gone to Anzar, to his email address, and it's time for him to take action. So normally, when I receive an email to my email address, the first thing that happens is that normally in previous cases, what happens is that you get a link in order to travel, right? So this is a sample mail here. So you have a link. So all you have to do is to click on the link and then you submit the form with your decision, whether it is approved or rejected. Now, say in this scenario, Ansar is not available again in his office. He's currently at home. He might have left office and he's currently at home. Now, in this scenario, if the Service Desk Plus is hosted, it is not hosted on internet. If it is available on an internal network, Ansar has to connect to the office network, and only then he can click on this link to approve the form, or he has to be physically available in the office. Now, to make the life much easier for the approvers, we have introduced a feature where all Answer has to do is to reply to this mail with his keyword. So he can say something like awesome or go ahead, proceed if he's satisfied with the request. Or if he wants to deny the request, he can simply type in any keyword, something like denied or unacceptable, something of that sort. And he can send an email back to the help desk mail that has been received to him. Here, the application has the ability to automatically understand what the sentiment of the approver is, what exactly he has mentioned, and based on that, the application can approve or reject the request on behalf of him. So let's take a quick look. I have one of the requests which has already been created, and if I look into the notification that is being marked, I can quickly see whether the ticket is approved or rejected. So this is how it gets printed. It says that the particular ticket has been approved. So the email content which I gave was approved, and with this keyword it was able to understand that the approver is ready to approve the request, and on behalf of it, the request will be automatically approved in this place. Now, we have got this ticket submitted and then we have got this request approved. What next? So, the next is I have to assign this ticket to the technicians to start working on the request. Now, earlier I told you that this is a travel based request. So, there are multiple teams need to be involved. So, someone from the visa help desk has to be involved to process the visa details. Someone from the help desk, hotel help desk management has to be involved to take care of the hotel bookings. Someone from the flight help desk has to be involved. Travel help desk has to be involved to take care of the flight bookings. So I have three different teams having to work on the same request. Now, I have promised an SLA of 5 days to the end user. Here is where I have to neatly structure my SLA among different groups in such a way that not too much time is provided to one group and not much lesser time is provided to another group. So imagine the scenario of a help desk, hotel help desk. All he needs is like 1 or 2 hours of time, right? He can simply look for the nearest hotel, a hotel nearest to the event, and he can book it. But when you look into the visa help desk team, the visa processing might take time, or even it might take even days, depending upon the country you travel. So you need to allocate more time to a visa help desk team than compared to a hotel help desk team. So there is where I neatly organize my SLA into operational level agreements. So operational level agreement is a feature that is like an internal agreement agreed or accepted by all the groups or all the technicians of the groups who are going to be acting on the request. So if I go into my admin configurations and then to service level agreements, I have my OLA. All I have to do is to edit the SLA, and I have the settings for my operational level agreement. So as you can see here, I have allocated 3 days of time for my visa desk team, 1 day of time, 1 day and 10 hours of time for my travel desk, and then around 14 hours of time for my hotel desk, which I feel to be enough and sufficient time for each of the groups to work on the request. So this way, now if I go back to my request and if I try to allocate this particular request, say to the visa desk, you can see that the OLA time is automatically calculated here for the visa desk. So similarly, if I try to change the group, the OLA will be recalculated based on the group that has been chosen for the request. Okay, now, so we have created the request and then we have got it approved. It has been assigned to the technicians. Now, I will neatly split this activity, the entire request, into small, small tasks so that the teams can individually start working on it. So I have created a set of tasks here for making arrangements for visa, for hotel arrangements, and so on. So let's consider here another scenario. I have outsourced my hotel bookings and hotel arrangements to a third party vendor. So here I have assigned this particular task of hotel bookings to a person, to a technician called Shweta. So Shweta is a third party technician who is not an employee of the organization. She works externally for the organization and she takes care of the hotel bookings. So now in today's world with different data privacy laws in place, you have GDPR for the European countries, you have CCPA for the California countries. So different countries have different data privacy laws. It's important that you have to maintain the privacy, the data privacy of the end user who has logged in this request, and the organization wide data privacy also has to be maintained. So I do not want to expose the entire requester details to the technician. So here Sam's name, maybe his employee ID, his contact details, all would be displayed. I do not want these details to be shown to the Shweta, who is a third party technician for me. I also do not want the entire request details to be shown to Shweta. There might be multiple information that is not required for Shweta. So I do not want that to be exposed to Shweta. So here is where we have brought in a new feature to associate only the required request properties to the task. So if you look into the previous versions of Service Desk Plus, we will have to go for customizations. We will have to create scripts to make sure that only the valid required fields have to be displayed. But now that's no more a customization concept. It's available just as a button click feature. So if I go to this task over here, if I just scroll down, I can see a section, a separate section for request details, where only the required details of the request is visible to the technician. Say the traveler's name, the start date, the end date, and the country of visit is alone shown. So to make it more, more of a proof to you, let me log in as Shweta and then let me show you how it looks like. So I'm logging in as Shweta. I'm logged in. So this particular ticket is it ends with 12 2 lakh 12. So I'm under the same travel desk. I go to request. In the all request view, this particular ticket is not shown to Shweta, but I can see the corresponding task that has been assigned. So when Shweta clicks on the task, not all the details about the request is displayed because the Shweta does not have access to the request, but important details of the traveler is displayed. So this way you can make sure what the technician needs to see, what not to see. This is about task technicians and associating request properties to task. Okay, fine. Now we have assigned it to all the technicians. We discussed about the SLAs and OLAs, which are a part of it. All the technicians have finished working on this request. It's all ready. And now it's time to resolve the ticket by intimating the end user that everything is done. So before that, it would be a good practice for all the technicians to double check what all has been processed. Is there anything pending? Is there any documents that I've collected that have not returned back to the user? Something of that sort, right? It's not just a travel related request, but anything, even if you're trying to create an AD account or if you're trying to create a mailbox, you might have something to check. So, if you consider the example in a normal day-to-day life scenario, if you're having a weekend plan, so if you want to plan something for your weekend, or if you're trying to go shopping, you will be creating a to-do list, right? You'll be writing the list of activities that you need to do for the weekend, or the groceries that you have to buy from the store. Just like that, we have created a feature called checklist. So using this checklist, you will be able to find out what are the items that you will have to double check before you go ahead and close the ticket. So you can see, you can look into the details whether everything is being, it's done for the customer, whether the travel kit is provided. If you have collected any passport or any other documents from the end user, you can return it back to him. So all this can be verified before you go ahead and close the request. So last but not the least, it's the request list view. How does it look like? It looks very colorful, right? With a certain request in pink and certain the normal request in yellow. So this is about color code customization. So in earlier scenarios, if a technician wants to quickly identify the high priority tickets, what he has to do? One, he can create a filter for high priority tickets. So he can go and create a custom filter for high priority tickets, and then choose the value for priority. Yeah, is high, and then he can view all the high priority tickets under this. Correct? Let's look into it. So I look into all the high priority tickets here, and I get those ticket details. Now, the challenge here is that if I have multiple filters set, if I want to look at the unassigned request or the open request, I have to keep toggling between each and every filter. But now you can make further customizations within the list view using your color codes. So all my high priority tickets have been highlighted here with a pink color. So if you look here, we have a color settings where based on these parameters, your category, group, priority, and status, based upon the value, you can provide a color accordingly. So this way, a technician will be quickly able to differentiate between each and every request. So with this, we have discussed a set of features with a small story. I hope this was helpful. Let's take a quick recap on what all we have discussed. Yeah. Okay. So the first thing that we discussed is about multiple SLAs in service request. We saw how a user will be able to choose or pick SLA from the drop-down list. So looking into its configurations, if you go to the admin section and then to the templates, you have an option to configure SLA under the workflow tab of the template, right? So here is the option. So here is where you can add multiple SLAs if required. So if you want to add an SLA directly, you can do that. Or if you already have any SLAs in the list, you can bring it here to the template. So you can add multiple SLAs, and then you can choose the default SLA if you want to set one particular SLA as the default one. Yeah. So this is about multiple SLAs in service request. Next, we saw into the color code in request list view. We just saw it now. So as you know, we will be able to customize different color codes based on your group, your priority, status, and category. So based on this, the technician will feel much easier to differentiate between the important requests that he needs to constantly monitor. Now, next is the backup approver. So we saw how when a particular approver is on a holiday or he's currently unavailable, how that approver process can be delegated to someone else. So how to do that? So right under your home section, you have now a dedicated section for backup approver. So as I told you, Sam's immediate manager or reporting manager was Daniel. And for Daniel, we set a backup approver called Anza. I also mentioned the period of time for which Daniel will not be available, and I have made my necessary comments for it. If I have any pending approvals in the name of Daniel, I can also enable that to be moved automatically to Anza for that particular period of time. So you have this configuration right under your home tab. The next is about Zia. So I did not mention this word Zia earlier, so because I wanted to talk more about it. But now, if you remember, we were able to automatically get the application approve or reject the request on behalf of the technician, right? On behalf of the approver. So all the approver had to do was to reply to the mail with a keyword with any words of his choice, and the application was automatically able to recognize the word and given the decision on behalf of the approver. So how is this possible? How are we able to do it? So that's with the help of Zia. So Zia is actually an artificial intelligence system developed by Zoho. So for those of you who have already used Zoho products earlier, you might be already be knowing about Zia. So Zia is not only for the approval process. Actually, Zia has a wide variety of capabilities, wide variety of features are available what we can implement using Zia. But those features are just right on the way. We are just going to have those features introduced in Service Desk Plus. It won't be taking much long. Right now with Zia, we have just introduced the interpretation of approval keywords just to auto approve or auto reject the request on behalf of the approver. So right under your admin configuration, you have a separate section for Zia. So if you go to Zia, you have an option here to customize the data where you can you can enter all the positive words. So all these words are already given or entered in the application. They're already provided. So in addition, if I would like to add any new word in the list, I can automatically do that. So I can just give any new word which I feel to be good. So it could be best or something like that. So I can give this word and I can teach Zia or I can train Zia that this particular word indicates that it should be approved, and worst means it needs to be rejected. Not just that, I can also test Zia on demand to see how better it can predict results. So, say for example, I type something like inspiring work and I want Zia to predict the result for me. So it will automatically try to understand the word and it will predict it to be approved. So similarly, you can test it on demand if required. Not just that, so if you're going to provide your approval, once Zia takes your approval, you will find an icon at the bottom right corner of the screen where it shows you the list of predictions that Zia has already done. So it will be a good practice if you provide your feedback to Zia. So you will have to tell Zia whether it was able to appropriately predict it, and then you'll have to give a thumbs up for it if it was good, or if you have to give a thumbs down. So based on the feedback that you provide, Zia will be able to self-train itself on predicting much better than how it was performing before. So using the set of words that it's already been provided to them and using the set of feedback that you constantly give Zia, you will be able to train this AI system in order to make better predictions of your approvals. So I hope this is clear with what Zia is able to do. Next is about operational level agreement. So as we discussed earlier, OLA is an internal agreement that each and every group who is going to work on a request will accept or agree upon, with the main aim that the SLA that is promised to the end user is achieved. So when you have more than one group going to act on a request, we suggest you prepare appropriate OLAs for the same. So using OLA, as we discussed earlier, it's available under your admin configurations, just where you use to set up your SLAs. So it's available for both your incident management and service catalog. So all you have to do is to go to your SLAs, edit the SLA, and if you scroll down, you'll have a dedicated section for the OLA. So OLA is not just about showing you the OLA time in the request. It can also be used for reporting purpose. So we do have a set of OLA related reports, all predefined reports already available. So I can look into the reports where the SLA is violated because of OLA violation, and I accordingly I can tell how much time is required for each and every group, how they are performing individually, which group was responsible for the violation of SLA, and so on and so forth. The next is the request properties and task, which we discussed about. So we saw how only dedicated certain fields alone can be made available to a task technician. So again, the option is available right under your workflow tab of your request. So if you just look down, you have a dedicated section for task details. So you already have this section for task where you can create task. In addition, there will be a small note like icon here. All you have to do is to click on it and you can just select the fields. Example, if I want to show the department, the requested department, all I have to do is to click on it and department gets added here. So when department gets added here, the task which has been assigned, this task which is assigned to a technician will be able to view the requested department. So all you have to do is to click on it and then it goes to the right side for selection. The next is about your checklist. So we discussed about checklist, how checklist is helpful for you to double check each and everything before you try to resolve the request. The checklist can be associated to the templates. So you have a dedicated section for checklist here. Click on associate, and if you have created any checklist, all those checklists can be associated right in the template. You can either click new checklist and then start creating a checklist right from the template itself, or as you can see, it automatically redirects you to the admin tab. So you have a dedicated section for checklist right under your admin tab. So under admin help desk customizers section, there is this checklist option where you can create checklist and then you can manage them. So for each and every checklist, you can create items. So here are the list of items that I have created. So travel kit provided, tickets issued to the user, all this comes under one particular checklist. Okay, so with this, we have seen 7 features altogether. You saw, like in a story, how I was able to interconnect all these features and show it to you. The rest, I leave it to your imagination. So you can decide how it needs to be implemented in your environment, how better you can use it, how better they can be interconnected. And based on that, you can start working on these features. The next is the feature related to change management. So I hope you all know about cab approvals, right? You would be getting cab recommendations from the end users, from the cab members, whenever there is a change activity that is being raised. So, but what was not there before? What have we introduced now? That is this feature. It's about multi-level cab approval. So, if you happen to look at if you happen to look at the service catalogs under the same workflow tab, you have an option to create stage-wise approvers, right? You can create maximum of 5 stages where you can have different stage of approvers. So this option was available under your service catalogs for service request templates. Now we have introduced the same format for your change request for cab recommendations. Now, say for example, I'm just giving you a new example here. I have a very critical server in my environment, and this critical server hosts a lot of applications in it, company related applications in it. Now, the server team has decided to move the server from a Windows 2000 server OS to Azure platform. So, I'm migrating the server to the cloud. So, migration of a very critical server to the cloud platform is not a very normal change. It has to be a major change, right? So, when there is a major change involved, the number of cab members involved will definitely be higher, and it has to be seriously decided. The downtime has to be decided, the possible challenges that you will be facing, all this has to be internally discussed before you proceed with the activity. Here, as I discussed earlier, there are 3 set of teams that I have involved in this case. The first is the server team. Since they have decided to move the server or migrate the server to the Azure platform, I need to get the appropriate recommendations from the server admins. So what I've done is that I've created a level 1 for server admins, and then I have included 2 server team administrators in it. The second, I'm going to get the cab recommendations from application owners, because I told you the applications, many applications are hosted on this critical server. So you would like to know the recommendations of your application owners too, because they would like to check whether the application will be compatible, will still continue to work after migrating to the cloud environment. So I have set up the second level of application owners. I've added 2 people or 2 major application owners in the list. The third is that I would like to take security measures as a part of this migration activity. And for that, I would like to involve my info security team too. So I've added the corresponding cab members from the info security team. So as and when I want to add new levels, all you have to do is to come here under the approvals tab. Here you have an option new level. Give the level a name, so I can choose, like, a set a new cab members like the VIP users or the top level teams. I can choose them from the list, and then I can add the cab members accordingly. So I just choose the cab members from the team and I click add. Now a fourth level gets added. Fourth level of VIP users get added. So if you look into the previous versions of Service Desk Plus, I have to club all these members into a very single level, and then the recommendations have to be sent. So there was no fine structuring of the cab members. There were no fine structuring of it. But now we have brought in level wise approval so that I can follow a proper workflow even for my change approval. So I look into my level 1 approvers. Once they recommend, I go for my application owners. Once the application owners recommend, I go to my info security team. And even if they say okay to me, if they give me a green flag, I go to my VIP users for final approval or recommendation. In case of cap, recommendation. So this is one of the new features that we have introduced in change management. The next two features or three features that I'm going to discuss about is related to your application settings. I would say we have taken application to another level by bringing these features within it. They are the OAuth. So OAuth is a 2.0, otherwise we called it as modern authentication. Now, Microsoft and Gmail, I'm not sure how many of you have heard of it, but right now it's the news. Microsoft and Gmail has announced the end of support for basic authentication, and they're going to remove the support for basic authentication anytime this year. Okay, it can happen anytime this year, and they are moving towards modern authentication. So, for those of you who are not understanding what this basic and modern authentication is, let me just give you a simple example. Say I'm giving my apartment key to my neighbor. Yeah. Now my neighbor can use the key in my apartment, right? Like there's no restriction to him at all. Tomorrow, if I want to revoke that access, if I do not want him to get into my apartment anymore, he already has the key, and I cannot go ahead and ask him back the key. What I can do is I can only change the lock of my apartment. That's the only option available, right? Just like that, your basic authentication is where you give your credentials, your username and password of your account to third party applications, and those applications who has your credentials can access your account and utilize all the services of your account. So say example, I'm giving access to one of my third party application to access my Microsoft account. In my Microsoft, I'll have my mailbox. Yeah, I have my own mailbox to check my mails. I have shared mailboxes, I have calendars, I have contacts. So all these are services of my account. So the third party application will be able to access everything, my contacts, my calendars, shared mailboxes, whatnot. Everything can be accessed. Now, if I have to stop, if I have to revoke this third party application from accessing my account, I have to change the password. So this was the concept of your basic authentication. Modern authentication is introduced for much security of your account. Modern authentication, you can just keep in mind, it's a token based authentication. So what happens is that a token gets generated every based on a particular time period. It gets automatically refreshed or it gets regenerated, and this token is used by the third party application to access your account. And not just that, only the services that you allow the third party application to view will be alone accessible to them. So say example, I want them to view only my calendar, not my contacts or not my mails or not my shared mailbox. I can restrict that for the third party application. So this is the difference between basic auth and modern authentication, correct? So with Microsoft and Gmail announcing their end of support for basic authentication, we are no more lagging behind. Service Desk Plus has brought in this authentication in our application itself. So if you go to your mail server settings, where previously for basic authentication you will have to provide just the username and password, right? Now if you choose OAuth, you have another option called OAuth, and if you choose OAuth, you can find a little more details that you have to configure. So you can configure the important details, the client ID or the token URL where the token is being received. All this can be configured. The scope determines the level of permission that you provide Service Desk Plus to access your account. So all these details can be fetched after integrating with your Office 365 and G Suite. So currently we support only for Office 365 and G Suite, and since they have announced the end of authentication. Next is SAML. So SAML is another single sign-on method that is available other than the traditional ADSSO that we so far know. So for those of you who are using single sign-on, you might be remembering about this AD single sign-on for those administrators. So under Active Directory, you have this option to enable pass-through authentication, and you use your Active Directory domain in order to configure your single sign-on. So one of the challenge of AD single sign-on is that only Windows users will be able to enjoy this service. Say you have a set of Mac users, they will not be able to use the single sign-on facility if it's configured with ADSSO, correct? Because that's only it's a Windows protocol, and only for Windows users it will be enabled. But SAML is operating system independent. So even if you're a Mac user or if you're a Windows user, no problem. SAML with SAML, every user will be able to log into their application. So we have brought in a separate section for SAML single sign-on. Currently, we have tested with 3 IDPs, or otherwise identity providers. So identity provider is where the authentication takes place, authentication of the user accounts take place. And once they are authenticated in the identity provider, they will be allowed to log into the service provider. So here, Service Desk Plus acts as a service provider. So the identity providers that we have tested so far is with ADFS, AD Federation Service, Okta, and OneLogin. But if you have any other IDP in your organization, you're welcome to test with it. You can very well integrate with it. We do not have any other restrictions that it cannot be done with a different IDP. You're welcome to do so. So here is a configuration. You have the service provider details, that is the Service Desk Plus details. So my Service Desk Plus URL and the related certificates are available here. All these certificates will be configured, these details will be configured in your identity provider. Similarly, the next section is the identity provider details. You collect it from the identity provider and then you put it across here. So this way, once the integration is done, once the configuration is done, you should be able to enjoy the SAML single sign-on service. Okay, so next is MS Teams integration. So most of the environments which I have seen, pretty much they use MS Teams. I'm sure like even in this crowd, at least one or two of you might be using MS Teams. So if I look into an average person's day-to-day activity, at least he spends 30% of his time of his working hours in MS Teams. He would like to chat with someone, he would like to go on meetings, he would like to go on calls. All this is done using MS Teams integration. So, a person, any organization or users who are using both Service Desk Plus and MS Teams, they might have to toggle between MS Teams and Service Desk Plus, right? So, understanding this bit of a challenge, we Service Desk Plus have brought the integration with MS Teams in such a way that right from your MS Teams itself, you will be able to access the account. So, I, sorry, yeah. So right from my MS Teams, I'll just open the link and then show you how it works.
Aripriya, sorry to interrupt. I
Yeah.
think I'm not seeing your screen.
Suddenly it got locked, Jay. Are you able to see it now? Or I
No,
think
I,
it's
I can see a video, but not your screen.
okay.
Oh yeah, now it's started, I guess, but still your screen is not shared. Oh yeah, it's loading. Yep, now I can see you.
Okay.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay, so for sorry for the interruption. We were discussing about MS Teams and how Service Desk Plus integrated with MS Teams can be of benefit to you. So let me get into Teams, and I'll just quickly demonstrate what are the options that we currently have with it. So in MS Teams, if you're logged in as a requester, you will be able to chat with the end users. So getting into there. So I get into my Service Desk Plus bot. So as you can see, I've created a bot for Service Desk Plus. And if I access this channel, depending upon my login, so if I'm logged in as a technician, I will have the appropriate commands or appropriate actions that can be performed. If you're logged in with a normal requester account, you will be able to chat with the technician, and the requester can view the request details, the request right from the MS Teams itself. So these are the set of commands that we provide you, and that can be used in MS Teams to have a look into Service Desk Plus related tickets. So say for example, if I want to view all the requests in the request list view, I can make use of this command. Or if I want to search for a particular request, I can do this too. So just to show you, let me try view all request. I have sent this command. Now, Service Desk Plus will try to read the bot in Microsoft Teams will try to read this command, and based on what it is able to identify, it should be able to show you. So I've already tried once the view all request, as you can see here, and as soon as I gave this information, I was able to see the list of requests that I have with me. So currently, I have a printer problem issue, and then if I scroll, I have another request for test for sync. So similarly, you can use variety of requests that is required. So I tried with pending approvals, and it looks like I do not have any pending approvals at the moment. So it gave me back that information. So similarly, I tried to search for one particular request, that is search request login. And anything, login is actually a keyword in the subject. So any subject that contains the keyword login was automatically brought in front of me. So this way I can make use of these commands and I can search for it. So as a technician, you can also create request. And here under the request view, you will be able to view the complete request list view right from this tab. So right now the integration is temporarily down, but once I get the integration back, I should be able to view the complete request view. So I hope this is pretty much clear. So all the requests based on the commands that you give, you will be able to get the appropriate response from within MS Teams itself. So here nowhere I'm getting into Service Desk Plus. I'm doing all these within a few set of commands that I know right from MS Teams. Next is so far we have discussed about three major features of your application settings. Next, what I'm going to discuss is about performance related settings. So right from the beginning, of Service Desk Plus, performance has been one of the important metric that we consider. So anybody who comes with a performance related issue, we consider that with top priority and we start to work on it and try to give the fix as soon as possible. Not just that, our internal team over the years, we have been making many changes. We have been bringing many enhancements just to make sure that we bring a maximum uptime for all the users who will be able to configure those settings in the application. So we have brought in again a few set of performance related metrics, and these are the set of features that we are going to discuss right now, starting with scheduled data deletion. So till now, I believe you might be knowing about data archiving, right? So for those of you who have not configured it, let me quickly show it to you. So data archiving is where over a period of time, you will be able to archive those requests based on a certain criteria. So what is the benefit of it? It's mainly for your performance and mainly for making sure that your space is not much consumed. So for your data archiving, you all you have to do is to give a criteria, and based on that, the tickets that are closed and which is greater than 2 years will be automatically archived. So a few set of information will be stored as physical folders, and then you have separate set of tables for archived related request. Just on top of that, as a part of enhancing this feature, we have brought in data deletion. Say for I started archiving all the requests which are greater than or older than 2 years. It starts archiving fine, it's going up fine. But over the period of time, again, these archived requests is consuming my space. They are getting accumulated. Now I have to think of something to do with these archived requests. Say I have requests which are older than 5 years, that might not be even needed by my company, right? It might, those kind of data might be too much exhausted. I do not want those data to be available as a record anymore. So what I can do for that? So that's where we have introduced scheduled data deletion. So you can delete both your archived and active request that matches the following criteria, and once the ticket is deleted, all the information related to the ticket, be it a file attachment or image, everything will be completely wiped off from the database or from the installation folder. So this way, any kind of older request which are not required for you anymore, if it is too much of data and it's not going to be of any use anymore, you can plan on completely deleting those requests, completely wiping off, And this will only improve your performance of the application. It will save much space, and thereby the application speed or the performance will be definitely in a good tone. Next is about database maintenance. So Service Desk Plus application comes with a self-maintained database, but then over the period of time, if the as the application grows, you will have to consider about some kind of data maintenance activity. Now, when I say data maintenance activity, please do not worry about creating any complex queries, executing them frequently, or monitoring them. That's not what we are actually trying to tell to you. All you have to do is to enable a button, and then the application will be automatically doing it for you. So we have an option here under the ASM directory or under admin tab performance settings, where you can automatically enable the schedule to maintain your database. So what happens in the backend is that the application will collect the statistics of the tables, of the database tables, and these statistics will be used to create query plans for optimized query execution. So if you do not have an optimized query execution, what happens is that there will be too many lengthy queries, and the time taken for execution will go for a long time. This might create in a waiting state for the rest of the query executions, and then it can go for deadlock. So all these can lead to performance related issues. So when the table statistics are frequently updated, the database itself can create a query plan to make sure that the queries that are getting executed are optimized queries. So this way, your query execution will not end up in a bottleneck or traffic. So that is the concept behind it. But though the concept, this is the concept, all you have to do in the front end is to simply enable it. So I will suggest that you enable it for operational, non-operational hours or off business hours. So that will be the best time to maintain or do the schedule for your database maintenance. So that's one section of your performance settings. The other section is to monitor your threshold. So for those of you who are using an MS SQL environment, you will have a transaction log file. So all those insert, update, and delete queries, right? Your transaction queries will have their corresponding logs written in a transaction log file. And this log file can grow over a period of time, consuming the disk space of your database server. So it's necessary that you monitor the disk space of that particular file where the file is stored. Similarly, your application server, where your application is installed, that disk space also needs to be monitored, because if it goes beyond and over the period of time, if all the space is being consumed, your application is likely to crash. So, in order to make sure that the disk space where your application is installed, and for MS SQL environments where the transaction log file is written, you have to maintain a particular threshold, and that has to be constantly monitored. So until earlier, all this has to be done manually by the technicians. They have to go frequently and have a look into it. But now the application is automating that too for you. So you can actually create a particular recommended threshold. And once the disk's usage crosses this threshold, the org admins or the SD admins will be automatically notified that the threshold is going beyond. So I've seen in my support, when I handle support tickets, I've seen many tickets coming up, with admins not understanding what this email is actually. All they want is that I do not want this email to come to me. So please do not take that this email is actually, getting accumulated in your mailbox, but rather it's a warning mail to take appropriate action to your disk usage. Now, the next is about your automatic removal of your assets. So, we talked about how to maintain your database. Just like that, your assets also need to be maintained, right? And if you have an option to automatically maintain it, the much better. If you take the daily life of an asset administrator, or if you ask an asset administrator, one common challenge that he would say is the cleanup of assets. He would say, I don't know which asset is where it is stored, who is using it, and who is managing it, whether the asset is still with us or whether it is gone. So that is one of the biggest challenge an asset administrator would face. Correct. So understanding the problems of an asset administrator, we have brought in a tiny little enabling option. It's a feature in our scan settings. So it's right available under your admin, your scan settings where you have a list of configurations that can be enabled or disabled, and this is one among them that we have introduced. It's to delete or dispose the workstations and servers that have not been scanned for a particular period of time. So, in what scenarios do you think a particular asset will not be scanned? Either the asset will be lost, or the asset is damaged, or it is in repair, or it is out of the office network. Multiple reasons, right? So, you would like to know what has to be done to those assets. The application here is giving you a feature which, when enabled, it will you can decide whether to delete those assets which are not scanned over a period of time, or you can move them to a disposed state. So the best recommended number of days will be 90 days, a period of 3 months. And another best recommendation that we will provide is to choose this option to move to disposed state. There are two reasons why we tell this to be a good option. One is that when you move an asset to a disposed state, the license that it consumes. So normally, if you look into the asset count, you will be able to see that I've purchased like these many number of assets and totally I've used 16. So each and every IT asset that is in use or in store state actually consumes a license. But when you move the particular asset to an expired state or a disposed state, it no longer consumes the license. So that's one advantage of moving into disposed state. The second thing is that when you delete an asset, its data is completely wiped off. But when you move it to a disposed state, the history information of the asset is still retained, and this can be used for your auditing purpose. So you can move it to a separate state, and after moving it to a separate state, you can filter out. So say I'm just trying to filter out all the workstations that are in my disposed state. So all I have to do is to look for the disposed assets, and it will show me the list of assets that are currently in disposed state. I can then think of what to do with these assets. I can check them one by one to see what has happened to them, and therefore I can do my further cleanup accordingly. So that's the advantage of this feature, to delete or dispose assets that have failed to scan over a period of time, with 90 days as a good practice. The next two set of features that I'm going to talk about is related to your security enhancements. And first one is about concurrent logins, disabling concurrent logins. So here, as a technician or a user, if I'm logged into my mission with one set of credentials, I've logged into my mission, I can stop and another session created where another set of logins or credentials are used. So, to put it simply, a technician can log into his account only from one mission. So, he cannot make concurrent logins from different missions. Now, you might be thinking where exactly this is going to be helpful. So recently, very recently, I this is one of the advantages of being in a support process. You get to see many different kind of scenarios being reported by customers, and you will feel how better each and every feature is coming to your hand at the right time. So there was one particular person. He's a technician. He came to me as a support ticket, and he mentioned that one of the important ticket has been deleted. So when they looked into the system log viewer of that particular application, as you all know, in the community tab, you have system log viewer where you can look into some of the operations that have been performed in the system. He was able to find that the delete operation was done by himself, but he's quite sure that he has not deleted the ticket. It was done by someone else, but he's not sure who exactly did it. So possibly, since his name has appeared, it could be that someone else has got his credentials and done it by logging into his account. Now this is a kind of a vulnerability or an attack that has to be seriously considered. So what you can do in this situation is that you can disable the concurrent logins which you have. So under my privacy settings over here, security settings, you have an option to disable concurrent logins. So right now, if the technician is logged in, there will not be a possible for another request. If another request is received by the application with the same set of credentials to be logged in, the application will abruptly stop it, will restrict it. So that's the advantage of this particular feature having enabled. Next is the password protected file attachments. So I hope you all know where file attachments get stored. It's stored as a physical folder. So for me, I have installed my test instance here under my documents. So under service desk, I have my file attachments here. So all these are physical folders, which means that anybody who has access to the application server, who can get into the application server, can simply get into this folder, and he can do anything with the files or attachments with it. He can tamper it, he can delete it, or whatever needs to be done can be done. But in order to avoid this, in order to make sure that even your file attachments are secure, now it comes with a password protection. So this is for each and every instance based feature that we have. So under your admin configurations, you have an option to make it much secure. What you can do is, under the security settings, you can set up a password for all your file attachments. So right now this option is being enabled. So if I try to check any particular attachment that has been created at this point of time, it will automatically prompt me for a password. So I will have to know the password in order to get into the attachment file. So this way, unwanted people, it can be allowed only to authorized personnel and not to any others who does not have access to view the file attachments. So with this, we have discussed all our features. I hope the session was interesting and you were able to find out what each and every feature can do. I am sure you'll all be going today and start trying out on these features. I really encourage each one of you to try the features. And if you have any queries or anything, any issues, or if you want to have any recommendations based on it, please do reply to us. So this is my email address. You can either directly text me, and I'll be able to reach you and provide you the appropriate recommendations. So thank you all once again. I think it's time for us to start interaction from the customers
All
now.
right, yeah, that was a very good presentation, Haripriya. I think it should be really helpful for the people attending this training. And yeah, it's a question time right now. So we just got another 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So if you guys have any questions, as I said in the beginning of the session, you do have an option to click on the microphone symbol so that we can hear your voice. And if you want, you can show your face as well. We'll be happy to see you. So we'll get a feel of virtual meetup. I believe it would be great. Yes, I hope you guys are still listening. So you can go ahead with your question, and we are here to help you, or we are here to answer you. Harpreet, I think you made it very clear. Probably we will have no questions. Let's see. We'll wait for another 2 minutes and see if we have any questions. Awesome. You know what? We got a confirmation on chat saying all clear.
Oh, great.
Great. So it was a very informative session. So yeah, it was great.
Thank you, Jay.
All right. So yeah, I think we got a confirmation that it's all clear. All right. So it's time to end this session. So we'll meet you again with another interesting session. We are planning to conduct this every month. So we'll notify you on the next topics as well. Please do join, and we'll make it as informative as we did this time. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. You all have a wonderful day. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.